Everybody remembers the first time, right? Like some of us can go back and pinpoint the exact moment we realized it was going to happen. What were your emotions like? Probably a little nervous, a bit intimidated, but certainly ready to take on the new challenge. And you didn't care if the other person had experience or not. This was about you. Sometimes it ended up being really good. Other times it ended up being really, really bad. But you could say that you accomplished it, and now it's about getting better and back here to the college football playoff, making it to the college football playoff the first time. That's what we're talking about. And now with the expanded playoff on the 5-7 format, we're going to have a bunch of newcomers joining into the mix. So who are my favorites to make the college football playoff for the first time in 2024? Let's go ahead and discuss. But if you are new here, welcome on into the channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down below, the ring notification. That way you don't miss a single thing we're doing over on this platform, because we talk college football every single day. Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, best of bros, college football aficionados everywhere about this channel, because we're on the race to become the #1 YouTube show talking about our favorite sport. Continue to follow me on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson, Twitter, X, Instagram, on my other channel, SEC Unfiltered. That way, conversations surrounding college football never have to stop flowing. So, 5-7 format. That means that 5 teams are automatically getting in. So the ACC winner, the Big Ten winner, the SEC winner, the Big 12 winner, and one at-large group of 5 bid is getting into the postseason. No questions asked. The 4 teams of the Power 4 probably are getting a bye. Nothing is promised or guaranteed. Like an 8-4 or an 8-5 roster from the Big 12, just because they found their way to a championship, is not getting a bye. But that's for a conversation on another day. For starters, you have to make it there. And we also know that only TCU is remaining in the Big 12 of teams that haven't been to the college football playoff. So let's go ahead and discuss who are the teams that are the favorites. For me, we got to start off with Ole Miss. Look, offensively, they're going to be a juggernaut. They have another year to learn underneath Lane Kiffin. Like, this is probably the biggest blessing of all for Lane Kiffin this offseason. He gets his quarterback back. He gets all of his wide receivers back besides Dayton Wade. And he somewhat upgrades on Dayton Wade with the addition of Juice Wells from South Carolina. The offensive line is going to have time. He loses Quinshon Judkins. But if it's a product of the system, Logan Diggs is going to dig his way up the ladder to RB1. The defense is going to be better. Like, it's going to be so much more dynamic because of what you added in with guys like Princely Umanlielen, with guys like Walter Nolan, also Chris Paul Jr., good thumper linebacker that's going to close the gap immediately. They don't play against Alabama. They don't play against Texas A&M. They don't play against Texas. Their 2 major games this year is LSU on the road October 12th and at home against Georgia on November 9th. If you win those games, one of those games, very hard to say that you probably aren't 11-1. 11-1 almost guarantees you a spot at Atlanta. And if it doesn't, that just means that you had 2 undefeated teams ahead of you. You can go ahead and pencil yourself in somewhere between the 5 and 12 spot for a college football playoff berth. Penn State, look, Penn State, this has got to be the year. I love the addition of Andy Kolanicki. I love the fact that you have another season to get better play out of Drew Aller. You brought in a legit #1 receiver in terms of former prospect in Julian Fleming. Your defense, yes, you lose a guy like Manny Diaz, but you get a good replacement in Tom Allen, who has experience working with defensive masterminds for years. You still have a good foundation in place. This is still a top 3 roster returning in the Big Ten, at least in terms of productivity-wise. It's hard for me to say that this is not a season, especially when you avoid playing Oregon and Ohio State. Your 2 major games this year are, not Ohio State, Michigan, my apologies. Your 2 games this year, November 2nd against Ohio State, and then I am circling, just for my own personal opinion, USC October 12th on the road. If you win those games, look at what happens. 11-1, 10-2. We're tired of the 10-2 mantra. It's about 11-1 time. It's about showing that you are capable of being more than just the baseline of Tier 2 in the Big Ten. You have the talent. You have the personnel. You have an easy out-of-conference schedule. West Virginia, Bowling Green, Kent State, those are your 3 matchups. You can't tell me you go 3-0 against them. Give me a break. James Franklin, this is the year it all has to come together. Louisville, guess what? The Cardinals, they may end up having the exact same formula of what Ole Miss did a few years ago. So Jeff Brom comes in last season, rebuilds the roster overnight, brings in a ton of transfers, guys like Jack Plummer at quarterback, and they end up going to Charlotte. They end up being in the ACC title game. and they end up playing in a decent enough bowl game in the Holiday Bowl. Probably if they would have at least won against Kentucky, been in the New Year's Six Bowl. I digress. They are going to do the exact same thing, at least in terms of the transfer portal being running rampant in their favor. They were able to add in Corey Brooks. They were able to add in yet another simplified pass catcher from Troy, if I'm not mistaken. They also brought in Tyler Shuck. When healthy, probably a top 40 quarterback in college football. When not healthy, a huge liability to your team. Just ask Joey McGuire about that. Defensively, they still have one of the best front sevens, even though they're replacing a ton of talent. Brought over Tyler Barron, Terrion McDonald from Tennessee. I think there's a good shot to where if you look at their schedule, they at least are going to be in the conversation. Not saying that they're going to make it to Charlotte, not saying that they're going to be in the front runner seat alongside Florida State or Clemson or Miami. But I really wouldn't be counting out Louisville. There is a very good shot, especially with who they have as their head coach, that they're going to be fine. Next up, Utah. Hey, welcome to the Big 12. You ready to be the new big face? Because that's what's going to happen. Kyle Whittingham is the most underappreciated coach in college football and has been for, I would say, the last 2 decades. He's smart. He's wise. He's fluid. He gets the game. He's willing to adapt the exact same way that Nick Saban is, the exact same way that Kirby Smart is, the same way that Ryan Day and Lincoln Riley are. But he's older and he has kind of a gray beard and he's never been a guy that's ever made it to a national championship. So we throw him to the wayside. Just like last season, we threw Utah's schedule out of the radar because they didn't have a established quarterback and they lost their number one weapon in the Rose Bowl the year before. Brayton Kuthia and Cam Rising both back for their MDs in college football. They're going into their 7th year, and so they're going to be fine. Their schedule, they have 2 games that I'm very nervous about, back-to-back weeks, Oklahoma State, and then they go play against Arizona. Those are probably the front runners alongside you in the Big 12. You get past those 2 teams, you don't have to worry about Kansas State. I think you're in a pretty good spot. In fact, I would say Utah right now, very much a favorite in the Big 12, and they should be. They absolutely should be a favorite to make the CFP. Tennessee. All right, so Tennessee, if they are as advertised, the way that we have talked about them this offseason, this is a year where that way too hype up persona from last season with Joe Milton is actually warranted. I love the addition of Chris Brazel from Tulane. I love the addition of Zalance Hurd at offensive tackle from LSU. I love that they have at least a baseline of productivity returning. And here's the big kicker of all. If Nico Iamaleava is as the way that we project him to be, if Nico Iamaleava is the quarterback that Josh Heupel projected to be able to lead his system in a certain formality, you're beating Alabama. You're holding your own against Georgia. You're going to be able to hold your own against any team in the SEC, and that gets you to 10-2. And 10-2, not a guarantee in the college football playoff, but also pretty damn exorbitant to believe that, yes, in an SEC where we are going to get a little bit more satisfaction and a bit more praise from the voters, I'm at least going to be in the top 12, 13, 14 conversation. Maybe I'm 11, maybe I'm 12, maybe I'm 13, but I'm hanging around at least a little bit longer. Let's move fast on these last few ones. Kansas State, Avery Johnson's going to be a stud. The offense is changing a little bit because Colin Klein left for College Station, but it's going to be about the exact same in terms of the play style, the calls, the deliverance underneath the new OC. Chris Kleiman still has a final say on everything that goes on internally with that building. I love the additions that were brought in this offseason. Offensive line worries me just a little bit, just a smidge. But I do think Avery Johnson is a human highlight reel. You all wonder about what happens with a guy like Will Howard up at Columbus. It's not really on the radar of those in Manhattan because they realize we got a much more established up-and-comer that's going to be here for the long run. I'm feeling very confident what Avery Johnson can bring. Missouri's a wild card team to me only because I need to see what their defense looks like. It's not just losing guys like Ennis Rackstraw and Amarius Robinson. You're also losing Blake Baker. And so can Corey Batoon, the defensive coordinator from South Alabama that was hired to replace Baker, be just as productive? Because you got to realize Kane Womack, who was the head coach, just got the job done at Alabama. And so was he the one calling the plays or was Batoon calling the plays for a top 20 unit? If it's Batoon, then you know you're going to get better because if he's done more with less. If it wasn't Batoon, do you feel like that your defense can just hold its own enough to where the offense headlined by Luther Burden, Theo Wees, Marcus Carroll, Brady Cook, that's going to take new heights, and that's going to lead you to scoring a lot. And more importantly, it's going to lead you to having better productivity. Arizona. I had to throw on here because of I believe in T-Mac and I believe in Noah Fifita. In fact, I have an already bet in place that Noah Fifita is going to win the Heisman next year. I am so excited to see what this Tucson roster can be. This ragtag unit of productivity that is returning a smorgasbord of talent offensively and still has some very qualified defensive players, even though Jed Fish took a few with him. I still think that Arizona, depending on how their schedule pans out early on in the season, can you hold your own against Utah? Can you play well against a team such as a Kansas State? Can you play well against Texas Tech and all these other rosters, Baylor for that instance? Can you do that? Because if so, by the season's end, I feel like that they would have hit their stride at the right moment. T-Mac and Fifita are going to lead the Big 12 in passing yards and yards after the catch. I don't worry about this team. If they can have the same mantra with a new head coach in Brett Brennan, if he just is the only thing that changes, this is a team that I think has a shot at Arlington. Doesn't mean they're guaranteed, but I think they have a shot. Miami to me is the team that I am banking on to be the Texas 2.0. I have said it in a million videos, and I'm going to stand by it. I love the offensive line. I really think that having another year to learn with Mario is going to do wonders. I love the fact that Francis Mauigoa got to start last season. That's only going to make him more prepared for lesser tier competition or even more established competition. I love the addition of Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward's a better upgrade for what you want to run with this offense underneath Shannon Dawson than what you have with Tyler Van Dyke. And this is a quarterback that was handpicked officially by your OC and head coach. And he almost went to the NFL draft. So you threw a bunch of NIL money on him to be the guy. Can he be that guy? I think he can. I actually think that when you look at the talent that's being brought in, what was brought in a top 10 recruiting class, and their schedule, which is very balanced. It's a little tricky at the very beginning. It's a little treacherous at the very end. Middle of the pack. You last year should have been 8-4. You really should have been basically Texas 2.0. 5-7, 8-4, go to the college football playoff. Instead, you finished 7-5 because if you didn't take a dang knee, just take the knee next time, Mario. That way, my comparisons really seem to work out well. Do that. We're in a good spot. I think Miami has a good shot. Last couple for you. They're all going to be group of 5 schools. Tulane. Look, they have the best group of 5 head coach in college football in John Summerall. He just had his team lose 4 games in 2 years and coach to winning back-to-back Sun Belt titles. They had a top 20 defense. That's now coming to New Orleans. What they were able to bring in the portal, especially on offense like Ty Thompson at quarterback. I am very excited to see what the Green Wave can do. I don't know if they're going to be the favorites in the American right now, but I do believe that they are a roster with the right coach and the right personnel that will always show you we've elevated our terms of talent. We've elevated our coaching style. So because of that, we're an elevated team and one that you don't want to mess around with, even as a 12 seed. We'll march into your stadium and show you a good time. It's probably going to end up with you guys winning, but it's still going to be a good time for us. Boise State hired Spencer Danielson after winning the Mountain West. They upgraded at quarterback slightly in terms of Taylon Green to Malachi Nelson. That was the number 1 quarterback prospect of the 2023 cycle. If he ends up panning out, if he ends up being a great addition alongside newcomer Chris Marshall, who at this point, just stay out of trouble. As long as you do that, you're in a really good spot to grow and thrive. This was a really talented wide receiver at Texas A&M. I think if they can win the Mountain West, I think if they could go probably 11-1, the 1 loss coming to Oregon in week 3, I think it is. If they can get past them, they are going to be, I think, coasting in the Mountain West. And at this point, it really comes down to quality of competition moving forward. Liberty, you went undefeated last year. You didn't lose your coach. You didn't lose your quarterback. You lost CJ Daniels, but at the same time, I think you'll be okay. You added in 2 really good emerging wide receivers, and you have a 3-star that's coming in, if I'm not mistaken, from somewhere in Virginia. I'm pretty sure that he is going to end up being maybe Daniels' replacement. And again, you look at their schedule, Conference USA, they're adding new teams this year that are going to be going up against Liberty. Liberty is probably one of the most established group of 5 schools. It's going to be hard-pressed to imagine them not at least getting in that conversation. This is really one of those times where if there are no undefeateds, you probably are looking at the strength of conference, which hurts Liberty, but also Liberty feels like one of the more safe bets that could go undefeated once again during the regular season. Memphis, Ryan Silverfield is going to be a huge name this year. They bring back their starting quarterback. They bring back, I think, 68% of their offensive production and 67 or 69% of their defensive production. They held their own all the way down to the wire last year. Double-digit wins. They really turned the corner. I don't know what the American Conference schedule looks like just yet, but here's what I do know. If they can build up what you saw last season, especially defensively, they're going to be able to, I think, handle any offensive metric. They're going to be able to go toe-to-toe with any great offensive weapon team. So I think Memphis is on the short list of group of 5 schools that could be undefeated, which ultimately would give you that automatic bid. Those are the teams that I think have an absolute great shot at making it for the first time into the college football playoff for 2024. Ole Miss, Penn State, Louisville, Utah, Tennessee, Kansas State. Doubt all of them are going to be able to win their conferences, but I think at least one of them will, which automatically gives them a bye. Missouri, Arizona, Miami, those are 3 teams that I think are going to be in that 10-2, 9-3 range. Depending on what the playoff committee views as the top teams, this might be an area where we actually start looking at numbers and metrics and production. They could be in the fold. Boise State, Memphis, Liberty, and then, of course, Tulane, I think, have to be in the conversation for a group of 5 schools that are going to have a great shot at being undefeated and eventually get that automatic bid. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Leave a comment telling me your thoughts. Who is the one team that you are excited to potentially make the college football playoff for the first time? Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, best of bros, the drunk dude passed out in a Waffle House parking lot about this channel, because we talk college football every single day over here. Follow me on social media, Twitter, X, Instagram, at Mr. Cole Thompson. And to keep up with everything that we're doing, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And also, go ahead and send me an email whenever you want questions answered at ColeThompsonWriting@gmail.com. Until next time, I am Cole Thompson. See you later, folks.